college football has finally come to an end, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Seems like you wait all year for it to get around. It takes off, train gets rolling, and then all of a sudden it just goes off a cliff and it's done.
Yeah, I'm kind of excited for the 12-team playoff next year, which I thought Monday night's game was a really good game anyways. Like, it didn't – the way it started, you didn't think it was going to be because, I mean, what everybody thought Michigan was going to do at the beginning of the game, they did. They ran it down Washington's throat. And, I mean, the first half – I believe Michigan had over 200 yards of rushing
209
offense.
yards.
You know, but credit to Washington. I mean, they made huge adjustments after that, but unfortunately, the offense couldn't capitalize on the adjustments the defense made. And the mistakes Michigan made, and not really mistakes, but Michigan's inability to score off their defense.
Yeah, it looked like it was going to be a game like last year's national championship where Georgia just routed TCU because Michigan jumped out and I mean they
made it look easy.
They looked like they had an elite offense that you hadn't seen all year. And they jump out at 17-3. Washington's just kind of holding on. They do, get the ball, drive down the field, burn some time up, score that touchdown on a fourth down to make it 17-10. They got a lot of momentum going into half because they got the ball at half. So you're thinking, okay, they got that touchdown. They were able to produce, a good drive, get the momentum, get the ball back. Interception on the first play.
Yeah, and honestly, outside the 2 touchdowns in the fourth quarter when it was essentially garbage time, and I think Washington was just kind of down in the dumps. They just weren't in it. I mean, Michigan only had there was between both teams there was only 6 points scored in the second half up to that point. Yeah,
it was definitely the score doesn't show how close the game actually was for the majority of the game.
Garbage time.
Because it was like Michigan jumped out big. Washington crawled back, and then they were able to kind of keep it at that 17-10, 20-10 range until, like you said, just...
Which is what Michigan likes to do.
Right,
I
exactly.
listened to a couple shows, and, immediately after the game on Monday night, and it was to a T the way Michigan loves to play, and they don't care if they win ugly, i.e. if, they don't care if they have 150 yards total offense. All they care about at the end of the day is getting the W. And I mean, that's
really,
what it was.
That's all that matters.
J.J. McCarthy didn't have to really do much. I mean, he was 10 of 18 for 140 yards, but the big kicker was they had 303 yards of rushing. And it's crazy, but Washington did do, like we said earlier, Washington did a great job adjusting after that first big wave, where, between Corum and Edwards, I mean, they couldn't stop them.
Yeah, it really was. I mean, of that 300 yards, the 209 came in the first half.
Yeah.
And I would say the majority of that came in like the first 2 drives. I mean, it was almost... That's what I'm saying. When you watched the way that Michigan was running the ball and Washington wasn't doing anything on offense those first few drives, you were like, this is going to be a blowout.
Yeah, I think I saw where Donovan Edwards had 2 rushing attempts for like 87 yards.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and there were 2 big runs right there at the beginning of the game.
Right.
And, I mean, it was kind of second half was kind of a sloppy game because you had Washington receivers dropping the balls.
Yep.
You had Michigan receivers dropping the ball because Michigan had to try to start passing the ball because – I mean, like I said, up until the final 2 touchdowns, Washington was doing a good job stopping the run.
Yeah, and it was, like you said, it was one of those games where Michigan, if they have a lead, their defense is good enough to just hold pat and keep them there. And that's kind of what happened. They didn't have many or any sacks, but they were able to constantly put pressure on Penix to where he was never comfortable. He was sailing passes because he was constantly throwing off his back foot. He was getting hit.
Yeah, he was hurting.
Yeah.
I think they added like extra padding to his right side. And I mean, after the game, he had like his head like covered in towels, but he was just holding his right side. You could tell he's in pain.
After you get hit in the ribs and you're already injured, you could put as much padding as you want. You're still going to feel it every time you get hit. I mean, you got a guy that's probably running at you 19 to 20 miles an hour.
Over 300 pounds.
Yeah, there's only so much padding you can put there. But
I mean, but Michigan did an effective job of making him uncomfortable because even when they weren't pressured, he was throwing off his back foot.
Right.
Even if they weren't close, they were from me to you or further away.
Yeah.
And I mean, he had a wide open guy that was a big crucial fourth down call.
Yeah.
He was wide open and Penix missed the throw because Michigan just did a great job of making him uncomfortable all night.
And it's kind of, you see this a lot with unless you're the elite of the elite. Yeah. And I'm talking about like the Tom Brady's, the Aaron Rodgers, pretty much just them. Once you can get to a quarterback at the beginning of the game, that internal clock in their head it tunes up. And even when you're not getting pressure, they're in that mode of I got to get it out. I got to get and then you're just, even when you have the time, you're still throwing off that back foot because you're just thinking, okay, they're coming. I got to get this ball out.
Yeah.
So if you can get that initial pressure and go ahead and speed that clock up, you really don't have to do a whole, you still want to get quarterback pressures, but even when you're not getting there, you've already affected that quarterback.
It's affected his psyche.
Exactly.
And honestly, I was listening to another show. Do you think the way Michigan won the national championship this year, where it was an elite defense, average, above average offense, where you're seeing a lot of these, majority of the teams now, it's all offense, where it's a bad day if they don't score 40 to 50, 60 points a game, where like Michigan just showed the blueprint of, okay, you don't need to have an elite offense in order to win a national championship. When you look at Georgia's their most recent two, they kind of had a little bit of both.
Right.
Where they didn't have, they always had an excellent defense, but offense was good, but it wasn't great.
I think you still want that offense because it's as good as Michigan's defense was. I think it got them. I think it was just a perfect storm for the type of team that they had.
Yeah.
Because Washington's offense is pretty much a singular offense where if Penix isn't doing anything, then they can't do anything.
They're the opposite of Michigan. Michigan loves to run the ball. Washington loves to throw the ball.
If you had a team that could run and pass with an elite offense, that probably would have been a different game. I mean, if you're talking, I think that Georgia's offense was probably more set up to run and pass maybe against them. But unfortunately, Georgia didn't make it. So.
And Washington's running back, or their starting running back, wasn't 100% healthy.
Right. No.
I think he was in for maybe one or two series at the beginning. He was on the sideline in pain. You could tell, like, they kept pointing at, like, the outside of his foot.
Yeah.
You could tell he wasn't 100%. And, he still ran some, but it really wasn't effective.
Right. Yeah, it's always good to have, they've always said, and this has been the adage for years on years on years, that offense wins games, defense wins championships.
Yeah.
If you don't have a defense, whether it's an elite defense, just a good defense, it's hard to win the big games.
Yeah.
And you see that with Washington. Like, they had a decent defense, but not good enough to stop a average offense in Michigan.
Yeah. And everybody was talking about going in, like, the running defense for Washington was going to be a big factor, and it showed, especially that the first 1.5 quarters was a problem.
Yeah, that's if you have an elite offense, you still have to have a pretty good defense because you're going to run into a team like Michigan with an elite defense who has just enough offense that if you don't have a good enough defense, they're going to win that game.
Yeah, because, Michigan was making some dang good tackles in open field. Like I said, they did a great job of stopping that offense.
Yeah. Congratulations to Washington for getting there. They deserved it. I think, you can make arguments all you want. They deserve to be there.
Yeah.
Georgia, you didn't win your championship game. It is what it is.
You can argue about who's the best team, but at the end of the day, all that matters is you have to win the games to get there.
Right.
And guess what? You don't reward teams, and it sucks for Florida State because they did what they had to do.
Yeah.
But you don't reward teams that don't win games.
Right.
And sorry, Georgia.
It'll shake out. I think it'll shake out a lot better next year for all of these arguments. There's still going to be the argument because even with the 12 team, you're going to have 13 and 14 that feel like they deserve to be there. But I think that it is going to make it a little bit better. With the expanded playoffs.
Because what's going to be funny next year is there's going to be 4 automatic
bids,
qualifiers.
Right. So
you're leaving out one of the Power 5 conference champions. That's not going to get a first round bye.
Yeah.
So then you're going to start arguing, okay, let's just say for example, South Carolina wins the SEC next year. They're automatically getting a bid in there. we could only lose 4 games next year.
Yeah.
But we're already getting an automatic qualifier. So I think it's going to shake out no matter what, because if you get the 4 or the 5 automatic qualifiers who are the Power 5 champions, because you look at it this year, okay, Alabama won, Georgia has a spot.
Right.
Washington beat Oregon. Oregon would have a spot.
Yeah.
And, Texas beat who did Texas beat? Kansas. Who did they beat in the Big 12? I'm drawing a blank now. But I think it'll just be the Power 5 conference champions and then the runner-ups and then a group of 5.
Yeah.
Which Liberty didn't really help the group of 5 argument this year.
I mean, they played a good game to start with, but yeah, that's tough.
You never know what you're going to get with the group of 5 teams.
You don't. College football has come to an end. We had fun covering it this year. Definitely will be back covering it next year.
Spring starts in 2-3 months.
Yep. But football's still taking place. We haven't talked a lot of NFL throughout the year, but NFL playoffs here, so we're going to cover that for the next few weeks.
I'm going to let you cook. This is your bread and butter.
Yeah. Kyle's more of the college football expert, and I'm more of the
take your shirt off.
NFL. There we go. Dallas Cowboys. We will be covering the NFL playoffs for the entirety of the NFL playoff season. If you want to hear our opinions on the games and either me in sadness or in
talk
joy,
about the Cowboys.
Yep, click the link here.
Or if you want to catch our full episodes talking college sports, any other sports other than the NFL, click here.